Monzy, we're here to talk about wine and pasta. I like pizza. Can we throw some pizza in there?
You throw some pizza, a little bit of mozz on it, and some basil.
Love it. I love it. And we'll certainly have to find a time where we can drink some wine and have some food. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about alerts. And I don't know, maybe some alert fatigue. I think teams struggle with that, organization. And even if you're not tired of alerts, you're probably not managing alerts properly to actually achieve some outcome you're trying to get. So we're going to talk a bit about that today, and the work that Crogl's doing, your team's doing to help companies solve some of the challenges they have. Maybe a few words about your role at Crogl, and then we'll get into the history of the company.
Awesome, yeah, let's kick it off. I'm the founder and CEO at Crogl, and I came up as a lab rat, so I spent a lot of time in the nuclear weapons labs and Splunk and other big data organizations, and started Crogl to really help the security teams to do the tasks that they struggle with every single day, which is investigations and threat hunting.
Two big important topics. So when was the company founded, and what was the vision or the catalyst that says now's the moment to solve this problem? What was there some lingering challenge that was never overcome?
Yeah, I observed that organizations had their data spread everywhere, so multiple data stores, and then people kept talking about there's a human resource challenge, but it wasn't really a human resource challenge, it was a human unicorn challenge, because there's no one person who knows how to use Splunk and Databricks and Snowflake and remember all the queries in their head and remember all the schemas. And so I really felt passionately as a practitioner myself to say, well, this is an unreasonable expectation from the team. The other problem is that teams have to follow processes, and we've been following this trajectory in the industry of saying, well, people need to be more process-oriented, and machines need to be more intelligent. Well, I think that's upside down. And so machines should be reliable and dependable, and people should be able to exercise their intuition to solve problems and be able to collaborate more effectively. And that was the nexus for us to serve the security community with a product that is rooted in data and process, so that they can solve the hardest problems that they face every day.
So what are some of the attributes of an organization that struggle the most? And what are the signs that you think they're seeing? Then we'll get into some of the use cases, but maybe broad stroke, the attributes of organizations and the signs that might say they're struggling, even if they don't know it.
I think there are a couple of different facets. At the very surface level, they have a lot of organizations have lots and lots of alerts. I've actually seen a security analyst, close over 300 alerts with one button click without investigating anything, because that person doesn't have a choice. They have to just go do something else, and they're just burdened, right? So there's lots and lots of alerts, one problem. And then the customers that we have are customers that have lots of different data sets. They're using multiple products in their security ecosystem. They're 40 plus products, and they need a way to do consistent, fast, and deep analysis utilizing all the data across all those different products. And they want to do it with high degree of privacy and governance, and not have to ship all their data into the cloud or their use cases into the cloud.
So that first example you gave with the one click close 300, I don't have time to investigate, or maybe there's some other decision-making analysis going on there. What's going on in that scenario? Are they saying the level of risk is low, and so I'm just going to clear that slate, or I have 10 critical things, there's no way I'm going to get to these less critical things, so I'm just going to close those, or do they have the right information to make that decision traditionally with the
No, and most security practitioners, when you have an honest conversation with them, they will tell you that they don't. Okay. But they're still doing that. Well, why are they doing that? It's because they're sensitized, because most alerts are benign. And so after a while, they just build this notional context in their head to say, well, this is one of those, I've looked at this 15 times, similar alerts 15 times before, I'm not going to pay attention to it anymore. But when you look at the history of breaches, the signal of the breach was there, and somebody ignored it. Not because they're lazy, not because they're malicious, they just had to, because there are so many. Right. So whatever mental model they have without investigation, they're just trying to get through their workload to get to the next thing. So that's one very important sort of aspect of that, is that's where, I think that's alert fatigue. Right. Alert fatigue is not too many alerts. Alert fatigue is you just kind of gotten desensitized to what's happening.
Right. And on that note, do you think, you talked a little bit about the unicorn, and I almost get a sense that they may not start as a unicorn, but having the tribal knowledge of seeing so many things over a certain period of time, they might be able to see generally what's going on. So they become a tribal knowledge unicorn.
Yes.
And it's hard to scale that. Again, back to the point of it's hard to find unicorns, even if it's not the technical part that you were talking about earlier. But they ultimately are human as well. They're not a unicorn, so they can make mistakes. So what does that look like for teams? And is that easy for them to spot?
Yeah, so what I learned when I went back to work for the bank, I was an executive at Databricks, and I left that position to really go deep back into the roots of the problem. What I learned was, invariably, whenever a person had the task, they would ask, who knows how to do X? And so people naturally rely on teammates and want to collaborate and build that tribal knowledge, but there aren't any systems that are able to compress and collect that tribal knowledge into some kind of a process and codify it, right? And so that is a big gap. And so that's why our customers they appreciate Crogl and they use it for that purpose. And we're able to collect that tribal knowledge from what people are doing and then codify that into a process that can then be consistently executed. But there's human in the loop, so people can go and make modifications and changes, but you don't have to wait to learn from another colleague anymore.
Great. All right, so tell me a bit about what Crogl looks like in terms of a solution. How does it fit into, like you obviously touched on the different data sources, so I'm expecting there's some integration, some connectors or something there, and then you have a system on top of that does what? So maybe kind of outline the infrastructure and how it fits into the organization.
Sure. So the first thing about Crogl, which is a big differentiator, hard problem to solve, is we built Crogl as a self-contained system. It does not have any internet or third-party dependency.
So it's on-prem.
It can be on-prem, it can be in the cloud, customer managed, and we have a customer currently in the DoD Intel community that's running it air-gapped from the rest of the world. And so that's number one. That privacy component for us is very, very important, and our customers prioritize that above lots of other things. So that's number one. So Crogl is customer managed, so that's sort of the base foundation. And then on top of that, what we do is we connect to the tools within a customer environment using APIs. And we don't do data movement, we don't do data duplication, we don't do data transformation of any kind. Crogl builds a knowledge graph, a enterprise semantic layer on top of, it's basically metadata layer, on top of the different data sets that an organization has. So you know that source IP over here means src_IP in this other data lake. So that's the first thing that happens from a data learning perspective. And then it hooks up to your case management system. It could be a ticketing system like Jira or ServiceNow, or it could be a SIM or a SOAR platform. So when the alert comes in, then Crogl will take that alert and then utilize the data that it knows about to go and investigate the alert using a kill chain process. So that's the top layer, which is the use case layer.
Is that MITRE by chance?
Yeah, that's the MITRE attack framework, and so it assumes breach. So that story that I was sharing before of closing 300 alerts, well, you will never close an alert without an investigation anymore, and you also don't have to burden the analyst to look at yet another one of the ones that they've been so desensitized to. So now they're free to go do other interesting things.
So how is this impacting teams in terms of, because we're still talking alert volume here. We'll get into the hunting piece in a minute. But how does this impact teams in terms of, you said they can do more interesting things, which may be the hunting. What's going on now in terms of response, maybe perhaps feeding back into detection and protection and other controls, mitigating controls?
Teams are now, as a consequence, starting to escalate into areas that they always wanted to work on, but they were bounded before because they had to do, it's like, you have to clean the floor before you can actually have dinner. We're talking about pizza.
That's right.
So, you got to prep the kitchen first before you can actually cook. And so they're just too busy just constantly prepping. And so now, Crogl just comes in and does the prep for you. And so now they have the opportunity. I'll give you a customer example. You got a call from a customer that says, Monzy, you guys built an amazing thing, and we're doing fraud detection using Crogl. And we said, wait a minute, we didn't build a fraud product, like what are you doing? And they said, no, because what you build is the ability to map data across, and that a human can articulate a problem, and Crogl can derive a process from it, and then execute that problem, the solution to that problem. And so we had an analyst who had an interesting idea around fraud detection, and they just wrote some notes in a ticket, and then Crogl was able to pick that up and go exercise that. So it's freeing the analyst up to do the things that are really, really business relevant. In order to execute these problems, and that's what's happening. And now when you think about the emergence of AI in the developer community and the emergence of AI usage in the business user community, you can imagine now that there's going to be more and more use cases that the security teams are going to be confronted with for compliance or for detection and response capabilities. And so it's going to free them up to go after this new terrain.
Okay. And so what? I always like to try to connect something back to the business as well. So the security team is there to enable, in my view, enable the business to succeed. So do you find, obviously the fraud is an interesting case, because if they can reduce fraud or prevent the fraud, better bottom line, perhaps they can be more aggressive in finding more customers. Do you see any other business impacts in a positive way that you can share from customers?
Yeah, we're seeing customers benefit in two ways very, very directly. The first is giving them a lot of freedom to make choices around their data architectures. Because the historical mantra in the investigation community has been, well, you got to put all your data in one place, you got to schematize it to one way. Well, customers' data is spread across in lots of different places, and so now they can free themselves from having to move data from, let's say, AWS to on-prem, or from AWS to GCP, because that's where the analysis is supposed to happen. So they can leave their data where it is. So that has cost benefits, but that reduces complexity for them. That also has availability benefits and performance and speed benefits. So that's one area that we're seeing really getting advantage. The other you called out, people are looking at other business relevant use cases, but it's also what they're starting to see now is that when there were knowledge gaps for the analysts, instead of investing a lot of time and critiquing the people, there's sort of a social aspect, instead of critiquing the people for not knowing something. Now the security analysts are taking credit for exercising their intuition. So it's a completely flipped model of a reward system now. So where they're like, oh, I did something, other people benefited because you closed the collaboration horizon, and so now everybody's building off of each other and making better progress for the business. So those are the two main areas where we see this.
I love it. Super cool, man. Yeah. Super cool. Talk to me about the threat hunting now. I mean, that's where everybody wants to play, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what are you doing there?
So I'll give you two examples. So when we parsed this problem, when we started the company, we thought, okay, everybody talks about alert fatigue, and that's a clear issue, and we're solving that in a certain way, through a kill chain process and a knowledge graph process. On the threat hunting side, when we tore the problem down, we said, what is it? Well, what it is like someone somewhere, let's just take CISA advisory as an example. There's a CISA advisory. It is a very well-written document. It is a very useful document, but it's not a usable document. Right. Because how can you parse, how can you extract, how can you do it? So what we built within Crogl is a document processing system that can actually read that advisory, decompose it, and create a process from that advisory, map it with that knowledge graph back into the organization's data, and then apply that kill chain methodology on top of that, and now all of a sudden you can do almost instantaneous threat hunting by saying, okay, this is the kind of threat actor that I'm looking for, or this threat actor is in accordance with this particular advisory or this particular threat intel report, and now we can go off and exercise it. So that's one aspect of it. The other analog, sort of adjacent aspect to it, is what one of our government customers is doing. They have what they call cyber task orders. So a higher level agency comes up with a cyber task order that says you're under attack, or you should go check for this kind of an adversary. That task order usually comes in the form of an email or in form of a PDF or some kind of a document. And for this particular customer of ours, it would take them almost 2 weeks to take that cyber task order, try to figure out what's in it, try to figure out, well, where do you run this query, or where do you check for this particular kind of threat, and how do you test it, and how do you package that up? Today, they just put that into their ticketing system just wholesale. And Crogl is able to extract the process out of the task order, map it to the data, and execute it, and give a report back in sub-minutes.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's insane. So now the analyst can just take it to the next level and do the things that the machine can't necessarily handle today, right? But it's just really just shrinking that, because the goal really for us at a very high level, it sounds kind of, in the sense that too futuristic, but it's already here in that we've dissolved the problem to a human intuition problem and removed the competency barrier and elevated the domain expertise, and prioritized the domain expertise over the tool competency.
So talk to me as we wrap here. A lot of my audience is CISO security leaders, but also business leaders, like standing up new services and products and all kinds of stuff. How can what you deliver help them build a better security program, better business, a line of business, or a new product, in the context of, because simplifying what's happening, but also allowing them to have freedom of choice for, this is the service we want to use, and put our data here, and where they often are told that's too exposing, too risky. So how do you say something to that group of folks that says?
Yeah, I mean the audience is savvy, right? Things boil down to the same three classical principles. There's a people, product, and process. On the people side, what I would say to the group is, you now have an opportunity to really prioritize the intuition that people have. And you can give yourself the freedom to think in that way, because there's at least one product like Crogl that does that. And if you prioritize auditability and privacy, then Crogl is the right product for that task. The second component is really around products themselves, the generalized product world. You now have the freedom to use whatever data you need to bring to the problem set. You're not constrained because, this data is not schematized, or this data is sitting over here and that data is sitting over there. You can utilize your data no matter where it lives. And you have a whole another data set that is right at your doorstep already, which is large language models, which are essentially immutable data stores. And so that's the forefront that you're on. So that's the second opportunity that is there. And the third opportunity is the process space, that you have the ability to have transparent processes now that are consistent and that can be automated and that are auditable. So that's the second. And so the last thing is maybe a suggestion. I was at the CISO Summit yesterday. We had multiple conversations on this. The key point is you don't have to solve all of these all at once. It's that just if you commit yourself to picking up one of these ideas and then running a small experiment to see how you can maybe accelerate collaboration for people, or how you can experiment with operating on data that is fragmented, or you focus on how do you create processes that are consistent and auditable. Just pick one of those, and then you can go forward and take advantage of what's on the horizon.
I love that last bit, because that's the world we're in now. The ability to experiment, to explore, and see, and it sounds like you have the tools to let organizations do that, both from a business side and then from a security.
Our customers are doing these things today.
Yeah, I love it. Monzy, it sounds like fun, man.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's great.
Hope folks connect with you and connect with the Crogl team. Start exploring, start experimenting. Stay safe and secure as you're doing it, and enable the team to be successful.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks. Thank you.
And thanks everybody for listening to this episode, and stay tuned for more coming to you from Black Hat USA, ITSPmagazine.com/BHUSA25. For this story, connect with Monzy, and see you all in the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.